name is Dawit Baek. I am an English teacher, author, aspiring life coach, and hip-hop artist who has bipolar disorder type 1. In the Overcoming Bipolar Depression Part 1 video, I covered 5 tips that you can use to overcome bipolar depression. Bipolar depression is different from normal depression in that it is due to more internal factors like a hormonal imbalance, whereas normal depression has to do with more external factors. Also, oftentimes it is a matter of time in terms of getting out of bipolar depression, whereas recovery from normal depression involves specific actions that one must do in order to reverse the cycle of one's mood. Both have pros and cons. Sometimes bipolar depression can seem like it doesn't get better even though one makes the right precaution measures. However, it is a relief that such depression is not permanent and will end sooner or later. My job is to explain how to quicken the speed of the recovery phase. The 5 tips I gave out last time were: first, exercise. More specifically, do aerobic exercises. Second, train your brain. Third, expose yourself to motivational material. Fourth, create good habits. Fifth, lower your expectations. I'd like to start with lowering your expectations, for it relates to the 6th tip: set appropriate goals. We can't have the same standards we had when we are at a normal phase because our brain chemistry is different and our body cannot take the same workload as it had before. You will have to take it easier on your physical exercise. You will not be able to study as much or read as much. You will therefore have to set new goals suitable for your condition. Don't feel bad that you can't do that of which you can do easily before. Doing things when you are depressed is just another ball game. Once you get better, you can get back to having higher standards and goals. When you are depressed, take smaller steps and reward yourself every time you are to achieve that goal. It can be reading a few paragraphs from an article. It can also be doing 20 to 30 push-ups in a day. Just keep pushing yourself increasingly in small steps. Even that is still considered growing, and continuing to grow should be the ultimate goal. The 7th tip is to be patient. Just know that oftentimes it is merely a matter of time in terms of getting out of bipolar depression. There are definitely ways of speeding this process up, but ultimately, know that you won't stay in this state forever. I mentioned in other video that being depressed is like being on crutches. Though it is uncomfortable, you can continue to take steps forward and you'll soon be healed. Tell yourself that you've been here before and that after winter, there's spring to look forward to. The 8th tip I would like to share with you is explaining your depression to your close friends beforehand. By doing so, you can have less social anxiety amongst your friends, and meeting your friends will be more enjoyable and comfortable. What I mean by explaining is that you should explain about your low energy and slow cognition, which makes it difficult for you to talk. In doing so, your friends can be more understanding and they can shift the conversation towards topics that you can actually talk about. I remember doing this with one of my friends and setting up a lunch appointment with him every week. There were instances of a lot of silence within our conversation, but my friend was very understanding of it. We neither felt awkward about such situation and rather could talk about important things like our struggles, a topic which I could talk about. On top of the moments of silence, I was able to talk about simple things in my life and was able to attain some satisfaction because my friend was able to understand my situation. If possible, I recommend doing this in a group as well, for you can get support from more people. I'm not saying every single person is going to understand you, but many will, and this will ultimately make you less lonely. 9th tip would be staying outside. If you stay at home, depressed and isolated for a long time, you may associate your home or room as some place that is dreadful. Perhaps it is your room in which you would just let your negative thoughts spiral, making your room a negative place to be at. Rather, go outside at a cafe or park. Make sure you get some vitamin D by going under sunlight. Keep walking for as long as you can, listening to music, podcasts, audiobooks, and the Bible. Go around and check out different kinds of restaurants and cafes you've never been to. Staying outside and going to new environments regularly stimulate your brain in a way it shocks the brain, forcing it to adapt. The neurological tendency can get your brain focused elsewhere besides your negative thoughts and quicken your recovery. I felt kind of depressed yesterday and decided to read and watch some lectures on life coaching at a cafe yesterday. I noticed that once I entered the cafe, I had some healthy anxiety, which led me to forget about my negative thoughts and focus on the content I was reading and watching. The 10th and final tip is keep moving forward. There's a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. and it states, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you must keep moving forward. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes, and I like to apply it to myself in the following way. I interpreted flying as being manic, running as being hypomanic, walking as being normal, and crawling as being depressed. As mentioned, being depressed is like crawling. Even when we are crawling, we must keep moving forward instead of being stagnant. We won't make progress at first or much progress at first if we crawl, but if we crawl long enough, we'll be able to pick ourselves back up and start walking again. When applying this metaphor, the most healthy circumstance would be walking instead of, let's say, running or flying. When we are running or flying, or in other words, hypomanic and manic, we should instead try to slow down a bit and go back to walking. By bringing ourselves down when we are hypomanic and manic, we can prevent a crash that will lead to a bad depression. So this metaphor of flying, running, walking, and crawling is not only used for depression, but also for bipolar disorder as a whole. In Overcoming Bipolar Depression Part 1 video, the first tip was to keep exercising. Second was to train your brain. Third was to expose yourself to motivational material. Fourth was to create good habits. And the fifth was to lower your expectations. In this video, Overcoming Bipolar Depression Part 2, the sixth tip was to set appropriate goals. Seventh tip was being patient. Eighth tip was explaining about your disorder to help you socialize. Ninth tip was staying outside. And the 10th and final tip was keep moving forward. Some of you may still be crawling or be in your depressive phase. I'd just like to let you know that bipolar depression is temporary and you can win against this disorder. You could either crumble or be victorious. Stay focused, stay sharp, and continue to grow. You have to use these crutches for a while, but tell yourself that the more you suffer, the harder you're going to work for a certain purpose, and that you'll be that much more determined. Let bipolar disorder be seen as an obstacle that will make you stronger and better rather than a meaningless handicap. I hope this was useful for you, and I wish to bring you more content like this in the future. Thank you very much.